Well, hello and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Slow Motion Broadcasting, and welcome back to the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors. This is round number 4 of the season, coming to you today from Zolder. My name is Ron Maunz. Alongside me, working the comms and the cams, is Joshua Wilkie. Off the back of a rather controversial race at Spa 1 week ago, we stay in Belgium and head on off to Zolder. This may be a rather controversial opinion, but I'm actually a big fan of this track. It's got some character to it, and I'm not catastrophically awful driving around here either. It's a peaceful track too, which, considering what happened last week, is something that a lot of these drivers are probably going to welcome with open arms. So Josh, to bring you into this discussion, you were on track for that Spa race 1 week ago. You'll be in the commentary booth with me here for Zolder for the 4th race of this season. Of all the tracks to follow up the biggest shiitake mushroom show of the season, it better be a track like this, where you got some good overtaking opportunities, but it's also not going to be a total drift as from start to finish.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a pretty interesting track. Spa last weekend was didn't really have a super great weekend there. It's not an easy one in the SRFs. Massive drafting everywhere, and the gravel was a definite thing that I think we're probably going to be seeing again today, is gravel rearing its head again, most likely. But pretty different track from Spa, I'd say. Here we have some pretty technical areas, one of them here being these this chicane that I've actually never done this layout, so that chicane's actually a little better than the layout that I did. That was a lot tighter and a lot more abrupt than that one, but I can definitely still see it definitely rearing its head and causing some drivers some problems today into T1 here as well. Not one of the easiest T1s in the world either on the inside there. Giant bump to get you, and then you want to bring it out as wide as you can, but obviously not into the gravel here either. Yeah, so I think, today this track, also one of my favorites, Ron. I think it's a little bit controversial with some of the drivers, but I really like it personally. I think it offers some pretty unique challenges. I had a lot of fun driving around here when last time we were here.
Yeah, and I remember being a part of that broadcast, and the race that came out of it was pretty solid, I would have to say, all around. There's good overtaking opportunities around this track, mainly turns like turn number 1. This being the clean chicane, I believe would be the... my apologies, folks. The correct pronunciation of turn number 5 around here. I will also say one thing which I occasionally bring up on these broadcasts, and that is iRacing's very odd way of numbering corners. I say odd because I don't want to say it in any other rude terms for the simple sake that I don't want to get my happy ass fired. But nevertheless, looking at the iRacing track map, it marks it as being 10 corners around here, which in reality is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So I have no idea where they got 10 from, but 17 corners around this racetrack. iRacing marks it as 10, but 10 corners, which did host Formula 1 back in the day, in that brief little period of time where Spa was deemed to be way too dangerous for Formula 1. F1 made its appearance here at Zolder, and also at another racetrack whose name is blanking out of my mind at the moment. I'm going to have to go through the history of racing and try and spot that one out so I can scratch that history itch that I always have in my head. But nevertheless, ready to get things up and rolling for what is set to be a good race, the 4th race of this season. Already have some good results on the board. I think we'll talk about the championship point standings, so we still have a little bit of time left to go here in this qualifying session. Only 8 minutes in, man. My time is sense of time. I can't tell whether it's completely flubbed up or otherwise, but nevertheless, still got a lot of time left in our back pocket to take a look at the championship point standings. And Josh, we're slowly training you up to be your to be a lead commentator for these. You handle the close for the Ray Esports broadcast. Did that Wednesday. There we go. You can tell I'm great with dates. And I think I will let you do the honors of going over some of the classes.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll start off here with the S1 class. Jason Green leading the pack here in S1. Pretty commandingly so far. Actually, not pretty commandingly. He's only up by 1 point here, so pretty close, at least with the top 2 in S1. And then LS Pleva, last race there, putting on a pretty pointy race from LS Pleva, as well as Felix Samoas. Pretty controversial end to that race between the 3 of those drivers. It'd be pretty interesting to see today how that plays out. And then we have Tortolo in 4th and Trenton Kramer bringing up or in 5th place there in the top 5. Maybe we'll move on to S2 here as well, do the top 5 there as well. We have Dan, I'm not really sure how to pronounce that one. I'm going to give it a shot. Witzak, we'll try that in 1st place. Yeah, it was pretty good. Okay, and we have Johan Asbeck in second place there. Almost pretty darn close here for the top three as well, with Pablo Breme in third place, and then Jeff Jacobson in fourth, with Daniel Salmon bringing around fifth place there. Pretty tight in the S2 category. I think looks like the S2 category is actually filled out a little bit more than it has in previous years here, which is a bit of a bummer, honestly. We're going to be changing some things here as well, I should mention, with the categories today. We do have, we're kind of in the middle of figuring out exactly where everyone should be. So if you do see somebody that's out of place, we will be fixing that shortly. And we are kind of talking with league admins and within the company here to try to figure out how we get this figured out exactly. Jorg Mani here in first in the Masters category, with Chris Murakami in second, Brad Cathcart in third, Tom Gradwell in fourth, and Antonio Reese in fifth in the Masters category. Looking a little bit more spread out in that one, Ron.
Yeah, a little bit more spread out, and I gotta say the class battles that we've had all throughout the season have been rather intriguing to take a look at. The one that's been dominated the most has definitely been the Masters category, as Jorg Mani off the back of back-to-back wins at Rudskogen and Spa, respectively. The only other driver to take a checkered flag thus far in the Masters category is Chris Murakami, who won the opening race at Bathurst. Spec 1, meanwhile, been won by three separate drivers. Felix Samoas took the first checkered flag at Bathurst. Sol Al-Shutwi won at Rudskogen, and in Spa it was Aleix Pleva winning it in a rather controversial way. Some accidents towards the end involving himself, Felix Samoas. Jason Green also got into a little bit of trouble towards the end of the race as well. Spec 2, on the other hand, has been really hard to pin down. It was Aaron Vogel winning the opening race of the season, the VTuber streamer who makes his appearance every now and then here in the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors. I nearly said Formula Ford Weekend Warriors. That's the series that you saw earlier on today here on SMB. But they won the opening race of the season at Bathurst. Rudskogen was won by Soren Garrett, and Spa was won by Daniel Salmon. So some rather... it's a complete opposite as to what we usually see in the other Formula Fords here, Josh. The SRF races could be down to the fact these races are rather draft heavy, but all three of the classes rather hard to pin down who's going to be the championship favorites in each of them.
Yeah, absolutely. We're pretty close here as well. Pretty early in the season, obviously, it only being round 4. You're not going to get a massive point spreads usually by round 4, but nonetheless, it's still very close up at the front there, and it looks like, some of the usual suspects as well. I'd like to kind of touch again on that finish at Spa with, I believe it was Felix Samoas, Jason Green, and who was the other one there? Was it Trenton Kramer? Or was it Thor? That were pretty tangled up in that last corner, and I'm wondering this weekend just if there's going to be any hard feelings between those guys and if they can sort it out, because I have a feeling they're going to be right beside each other again during this one.
Was actually Aleix Pleva involved in all that drama.
Right.
He was the one that took the checkered flag and all that craziness, and certainly no love lost between some of those racers. It was a rather controversial finish 1 week ago, and these drivers certainly hoping not to have a repeat of that. I'm going to go through, there's another driver involved in that. I'm going to have to look back on last week's broadcast to see exactly who it was so I can get my names correct here, but it was multiple cars involved in that finish, and some tempers certainly flaring. Here at Zolder, on the other hand, though, I feel like this racetrack won't really spawn the opportunity for drivers to get really ticked off with each other. The only real spots I can imagine being a source of trouble is probably going to be that turn 5 chicane on the opening lap, because that's a flick of a chicane if ever I saw one. Yeah,
absolutely. There's a couple pretty big curbs here, and that's one of them there as well. If you noticed, actually, during the race, we're probably going to see some airtime through there. You're definitely seeing the cars bike through that chicane over and over again every lap. One of my kind of favorite spots actually on the lap was kind of lining that corner up every time. And if you get it just right, if you can kind of master that chicane, it's actually worth quite a bit of time as well, Ron.
Yeah, it was that chicane is incredibly tough. I will invoke a little bit of terminology from my own racing adventures or misadventures, depending on how you see it. This chicane, it feels like something you'd see on a kart track, and you kind of have to drive it as if you were a go-kart driver. You just have to kind of lick the stamp, send it, hit the curbs. If iRacing slowdowns weren't a thing, you would see some drivers doing a total hop, skip, and a jump heading through that chicane. That's another tough one, as we just saw proven by Andre Favini spinning off the track. That is iRacing doesn't even mark that as a corner number. What in the world? iRacing, come on, need to poke you with that little stick. I will form a protest if I am on the Daytona 24 broadcast next weekend. But whatever the corner number is, well, whatever the corner name is or whatever the corner number is, the chicane after the long meandering left of turn number 6, that's another tough section around this track as well. Whole lots of chicanes. You got the turn 5-1 that Joshua took an in-depth view at a couple of moments ago. The chicane after that, but the chicane to end off this lap is going to be another source of controversy potentially here as well. This is the alternative layout of Zolder, so having to worry about a much quicker end to the lap. It is a left-right flick on pavement that I don't think has been used by any race cars since probably about 1999. However, these race cars here at the Spec Racer Fords are going to make use of that, and from my own experience running some AI races and various types of race cars around this track, using this layout, that chicane, if it goes wrong through there, you're going to see a driver ballpark it.
Yeah, that's for sure. It is very high speed, and you're right about the flick. It is sort of just kind of a little flick back and forth, and if you get a little tank slapper through there, or God forbid you try to go too wide through it or something, it's going to be a bit of an interesting chicane. This kind of is a track of chicanes. Yeah, I like that entrance on there. It almost feels like you're jumping into a parking lot or something. It's just not even part of a track. And then, holy cow, as Jim Brewster testing the very limits of the track there and how close he can get to that wall. Back to that other chicane as well. We're on there's one just before that as well that's a little bit tighter, and it might be one of the harder chicanes I've ever had to wrap my head around, honestly. It's got such a strange entrance, and it's so very easy to off track on that chicane and get a slowdown. And if you do, it leads right back out after that onto a pretty flat out section, and man, do you ever lose time there. In fact, when I was racing here last time, I was having a pretty good race. I did have a bit of a 360 spin, and it was a pretty eventful one for me, but I started making up places and everything was looking good, and then I just had, I think it was 2 or 3 trips. Not through this chicane here. This one I seem to be able to get. That one's pretty fun, but this next one coming up here is just a mind-bending chicane. You have to slow down so much, and it's so very easy to get an off-track and then have to deal with it afterwards, and the pain of dealing with an off-track right here is just not very much fun watching everybody just catch you down this straight.
Yeah, slowdown on iRacing is just about the most torturous thing any iRacer can try and endure. The amount of times I've seen a racer have their chances entirely just destroyed, for lack of a better term, because of a slowdown is really bad. And breaking the fourth wall here for a moment, folks, because usually when you think of catastrophic slowdowns, you think of a track like Daytona. I'll be honest, folks, in the time between the Formula Ford broadcast and this Spec Racer Ford broadcast, I had to very briefly serve as a sub for another broadcast with a different broadcaster of a race around Daytona. So I am very familiar with how bad slowdowns can affect a driver's attempts at doing well in a race. We've seen that play a pretty disastrous factor in some drivers in the past in the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors series, doubly so, considering how tightly packed together these fields can be. But going back to the point you mentioned a couple of moments ago, Josh, about that chicane that we just saw our current professional pole sitter Felix Samoas go through, that chicane, it feels so clunky because you're going into it in a really odd angle. You don't have enough time to set yourself up, but it's not like a chicane in the sense that you're immediately out on the exit curb as soon as you go into it. There's just enough time for you to slowly meander your way over to the right-hand side and get yourself set up kind of into that corner. But there's not enough to actually get yourself fully set up. So it's a really clunky section around this track. As much as I like it, that area through that course right there is definitely a little bit of a low spot. It's the, I'm trying to think of the best way I can describe it. It's trying to think of a metaphor where there really isn't one. It's like the brown pieces in a thing of Fruit Loops.
Yeah, there you go. It's something you somewhat want to avoid. You might put them beside the bowl rather than get in there and get right amongst them. And I'm going to kind of have to agree with you on that chicane, at least maybe not the analogy, but at least the definitely the sentiment there for sure. Not my favorite one. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't that bad. We'll go with it. We'll try to milk it, but I was going to mention there, too, we did see Felix Samoas kind of behind Jason Green, something we don't talk about too often in these qualifying sessions. We see Pablo Brema get it wrong that's not one you want to get it wrong. You're going to end up in the wall every single time. But back to the point there, that there's some drafting going on out there in these SRFs and in the other classes as well, but it seems to be in the SRFs even more. You need to get a draft partner out there for qualifying. And if you just happen to be kind of out there alone and you just can't find a draft partner, you don't get the timing right, maybe down a straightaway, it can be very, very difficult out there, Ron. I know from personal experience, my first 2 seasons, very difficult to find a draft partner and sort of just get amongst it. You really do have to have your shoulders out, even in qualifying. You got to get out there and bully your way around pretty much so that you can get your lap. And if you don't, you just won't get it. Sometimes maybe you get lucky and somebody just dangles one down the straightaway for you and you can kind of pull up the back. But most of the time, you've got to fight for every position and every draft that you get out there in qualifying.
Yeah, the draft, usually you think, okay, yeah, qualifying, won't have to worry about the same stuff come time for the race. In the Spec Racer Ford, you still have to worry about the draft just as much in qualifying as you do in the race. Doubly so considering a matter of a couple of tenths of a second can make the difference between qualifying outside the top 20 and finding yourself knocking on the doors of the top 10. I'll actually raise that point here real quick as Tom Gradwell is currently our 10th place qualifier, third of the Masters racers, the Master category currently being led by Antonio Reese. But looking through, Gradwell saying a 137.382. Then you go back, we'll do a half a second. You go a half a second back, and you'd be in the midst of a S1 sandwich between Evander Dantas and Joshua Justice. So, small little difference in lap time can make a really big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And, one of the other big differences it makes is track position. Track position is also a really big deal in these. So, I've had races where you get out there and you have some pace. You're quick at this track, and you just end up in 26th place because you can't get a draft. And the people in front of you get a draft in qualifying, and then you're in 26th place. And man, is it ever hard when you're back there and you're sometimes a second, maybe even more faster than the people in front of you, and there's just nothing you can do about it. There's a wall of SRFs in front of you. You have that draft, you have that speed, and you just kind of have to bottle it and hold it, and have some patience really. And man, oh man, that can be difficult. So there's a lot of strategy out there in qualifying for these particular cars, and it makes them super fun.
Yeah, these Spec Racer Fords, I gotta say, honestly, Josh, I really like the way the Spec Racer Fords are. I'm not very good in the Spec Racer Fords, don't get me wrong, but there's just a nice little fun feeling whenever you're driving these things around. Some old school race cars with some old school fun around some pretty good racetracks as well. Got an awesome schedule of races to look forward to all throughout the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors season here for season 1 of 2025. Of course, I've already had races at Bathurst, Rudskogen, and Spa. Zolder playing host to the race here today. Then we're going to be heading to tracks like Summit Point, Silverstone, Winton, Donington Park, Suzuka, VIR, Cadwell Park, and Road Atlanta, bringing this season to a close. But we'll definitely be touching on a lot of those racetracks come time for their day in the sun. But speaking of the day in the sun, I think we need to break out the umbrellas and see the starting grid for this race. And it's going to be Felix Samoa starting this race from the pole position in the number 31 car, taking a 1 minute 36.345 in the process. Solal Shutwi in the 132 going to line up on that front row. They have a full starting grid. Holy cow. Antonio Reese going to be starting this race in third. Soren Garrett in fourth. And we have Jörg Mani starting in fifth. Should be known that Antonio Reese starting in the pole of the Masters category. Soren Garrett starting from the pole in the Spec 2 class. Jörg Mani second of the Masters racers, P5 overall. And we have Jason Green in sixth. Joachim Osbeck, the Swede, in the 210 car, going to be starting in seventh. Trent Kramer off the back of a not very ideal Formula Ford race at Oulton Park earlier on, looking for some redemption here at the SRFs, running at Zolder, going to be starting this race in P8. Ben Rycroft, the Brit, and Tom Gradwell going to round out your top 10 starters. Flavio Andallo will start this race in P11. Scott Russell going to join him on that sixth row. Daniel Wood, the Mexican behind the wheel of the number 28 car, going to find himself starting this race in lucky number P13. Jason Perry going to round out your seventh row. Dan Witzak, the Canadian, in P15. Evander Dantas in P16. Joshua Justice in the 99 finds himself in 17th. Matt Thompson in 18th. Phil Berry in 19th. And Jesus Rodriguez rounding at the top 20.
And then following up Jesus, we have Brad Cathcart in the Masters category in 21st, Michelle Voglini in 22nd, Edgar Sancinelli in 23rd, Pablo Brema in 24th. Moving on to 25th, we have Adam Bradshaw, Jim Brewster in 22nd, Tor Tullo in 27th place, Andrew Love in 28th place there in the S2 class, Jeff Jacobson in 29th, Boris Essman in 30th, Paul Jackson in 31st, Stephen Mitchell in 32nd, Michael Nelson in 33rd, Mario Kresmer in 34th, Marcus Burkett in 35th, Andrea Favini in 36th place, and I believe we even have some more big fields today in the SRF. Man, our fields seem to be growing these days, Ron. This is just great. 37th is Alan McCain. 38th is Aid Allen. Excuse me. 39th is Russell Telker. Daniel Salmon in 40th. 41st place is Charles Vaccaro. 42nd place, kind of out of place there for Josh Soda. We should definitely be seeing him move forward in 42nd place. Daniel Case in 43rd. And Jason Grider bringing up, I believe, is that the final driver in 44th place, Ron?
I think it may be 44 starters. Holy cow. This is just absolutely awesome to see every single season. The Spec Racer Fords, the Formula Fords, and the Formula Vs always bring out some fantastically large grids, and 44 race cars set to tackle this racetrack in the not too far off future. 44 drivers ready to tackle 40 minutes of racing action. A 40-minute race set to have a whole lot of stuff to worry about if you are these racers. Have to worry about the pit stops, and also have to worry about the run through turn number 1. Josh, you had some experience running this race 1 season ago, and turn 1, despite the fact we're running on the alternative layout this season, turn 1 was the same, and turn 1 will be the same challenge here today. I want to ask you about that, how tough it's going to be navigating that first lap.
Yeah, I mean, 40 SRFs trying to get through T1 and through those really difficult chicanes that we were touching on there is not going to be an easy one, Ron. And it's going to take not only you're going to have to basically just respect and trust the guys around you there, and or the drivers around you, I should say, and make sure that you just kind of stay out of trouble, for the first couple laps, which is going to be way easier said than done as we see people almost losing it in the gravel on the warm-up lap, Ron.
Yeah, that's one thing that we are unfortunately going to have to mention a lot throughout this race. The grass and the gravel that lines this racetrack, it's old school, so it doesn't have a whole lot of asphalt runoff area, and instead we're going to see this track again littered with gravel. The run between turns number 1 and turn number 2, I gotta imagine it's gotta look like a rally special stage come time for the end of this race. But we won't have to worry about that for a little while. These drivers won't have to worry about that for a little while. Instead, what we got to worry about is a stacked field of race cars ready to get things up and rolling. You can tell it's action-packed based off the fact the photographer on the left-hand side of your screen switched his attention to the massive pack of race cars that was going to blow his doors off and blow off the starter stand. The green flag is down. The drivers are on their way. Looking like a pretty good start from Felix Samo is going to lead them into turn number 1. Look at Solal Shutwin maybe feeling a little bit of a challenge very early on into this race. Look at Daniel Wood at a big crash heading through turn number 1. That's Jason Perry going off the track in dramatic fashion. Gravel already getting kicked up in the air. Looks like multiple race cars have already made their way off the circuit. Not an ideal start for them at all. We'll say Paul Jackson and Charlie Vaccaro also running into some difficulties, although I don't believe either of those two racers actually took the start. That was Aid Allen, I think, in the 666 car. They've got a piece of that action. Certainly Jason Perry in the 97 going off the circuit in dramatic fashion, but the field up towards the front getting away with it surprisingly clean, but I figured turn 1 would be a trouble spot, and we saw it get put on full display a couple of moments ago.
Oh, absolutely, as we see Phil Berry kind of getting shuffled out right there in the Cookie Monster machine. Looks like he's going to live to fight another day, though. A little bit of damage here and there, but so far, you know what, I'm not even going to say it. We're racing, Ron, and looks like we're doing okay so far here, as it looks like Felix Samoes and El Shwadi here are definitely taking a little bit of liberties on everybody else on the first lap here so far.
Yeah, some drivers already having some intriguing interpretations of track limits, and a lot of drivers cutting their way through the field like a hot knife through butter. You mentioned a couple of moments ago, the driver who I've never really had pinned down to one specific series, but is always one that you see just cut his way through the field like a hot knife through butter, that being Joshua Soto. I don't believe he actually took the start, so a little bit disappointing to see the 07 car not take it to the green flag, but we will potentially see him on track for the Ray Esports Club Racing League coming up this Wednesday here exclusively on Slow Motion Broadcasting. And look at that, Trent Kramer running wide through turn number 1. That'll be the opportunity that Jason Green seizes, and more gravel getting kicked up onto the racetrack. This is going to be a big factor throughout the rest of this race. The smoke going up in the air, the gravel getting kicked up from these tires. Holy cow, turn number 1 and 2 look like a snow globe more than a racetrack.
Yeah, absolutely. The physics there showing looks a little bit like moon gravity physics. They're dancing all over the track and bouncing all over the place, which is definitely going to offer a bit of a unique challenge here for some of the drivers. Honestly, into the spa race last weekend, I just kind of had to mentally be like, okay, just check that that's happening kind of visually and just sort of forget about it as we see another driver getting shuffled out of the chicane there. Not an easy one to get 5 cars through, and it's going to take a few laps here, I think, to sort it out until we sort of figure it out. But man, there's a lot of smoke and gravel in the air, and it's something you just kind of have to block out of your mind as we're seeing more people missing the chicanes. Not an easy track run, especially in the first few laps, and I don't think this gravel is going to make it any easier.
Yeah, the gravel, in fact, is probably going to make this track feel a lot more narrow than it actually is. As Antonio Reese dropping down like a rock, I think he may have gotten bit by the slowdown bullet. You can see him now just absolutely getting railroaded. You can see Edgar Sancinelli trying to get a move done on him as Jeff Jacobson slide in right behind. Look at those two side by side in the small little flat out blast before the final chicane. And let's see, it looks like they single file out off into the corner. Sancinelli getting that move done to slip his way up into 19th, but Antonio Reese looking to fight back as Tom Bradwell in the 909 car making his early call to come down pit lane. That's not going to be a smart strategy call, I don't think, so there must be some sort of extracurricular damage going on there. That or you put a qualifying fuel load in. Either way, not ideal, as a side-by-side racing still flaring up between Reese and Sancinelli.
Yeah, it's gonna, just getting rodeoed here on the first lap. You can kind of see everybody just trying to get their hands around this lap here. So it looks like we're getting a little bit of pressure here from behind. It looks like Jeff Jacobson on Sancinelli, and Sancinelli just kind of struggling a little bit here during the laps. He seems to be losing a bit of time. Every once in a while, you kind of just gotta try to gather it up and take a big deep breath and just try to slot back in and keep going here. And that seems to be kind of what's happening to Edgar at the moment, as it looks like we've got a few people falling down the order here, Ron.
Yeah, so more drivers going off the track. Look at that. That's Jesus Rodriguez in the number 76 car dropping down. Currently finds himself in 26th. Very early on into this race. Only 4.5 minutes on the clock, and we've seen a whole lot of drama break out thus far. Here's Rodriguez, and bam! Over the curb and going up into lower Earth orbit. Look at that. Nice evasive maneuver from Joshua Justice. Still got to lose out some time in the number 99 car, but Rodriguez, that, holy cow. I mean, his spine's probably been turned into dust, but the fact he was able to get away with that rather scot-free is an absolute miracle. I'm curious if we could take a look at another angle of this time riding on board with Phil Berry, because he had probably the most terrifying perspective of all of that.
Yeah, let's see if we can't find that one. See if we can't find one from Phil Berry, Berry's position here momentarily. And yeah, he got huckabucked big time there. I'm surprised he has rear suspension left or a tire left on that car. And man, oh man, in real life, you'd be taking a trip to the hospital there. That would be a real sore bum and back after that one.
My entire karting career basically came to an end because of back pain, so I can assure you that a ride like that in a Spec Racer Ford, I mean, a Spec Racer Ford compared to a go-kart, it has suspension, but it's basically a hockey puck. Look at that from Phil Berry's perspective, the Cookie Monster. Thankfully for the Cookie Monster, he didn't take a bite out of that curb crumb heading through, but that could have ended in tears if he did, because holy cow, got fantastic view of the underside of Jesus Rodriguez's race car. Much to the chagrin of Jesus Rodriguez himself, but never mind, 3 wide, heading up over the hill down into turn number 7. Jeff Jacobson involved in that battle along with Tortolo and Antonio Reese, as I think Jacobson may have gotten a big whack from Sancinelli, because I heard a monstrous clunk of metal.
Yeah, that was, briefly there, Jeff Jacobson taking the 3 wide, I would imagine, just to kind of be like, hey guys, I'm here, and, maybe force a mistake or something. I've definitely, I've diced it up with Jeff a few times, and he will throw a dummy here and there and make you think he's not going to move and then move at the last minute. And, that's all racing. That's just all racecraft at the end of the day. And as long as you know what's going on and you're not pushing anybody off the track, it's perfectly fine. But yeah, it did look like kind of didn't get that chicane quite right there, and I'm not sure if he did get a tapper on, but he certainly woed the car up a bunch not to get that horrible slowdown we were talking about on the run-up.
Yeah, I think my ears may have been deceiving me. I just heard the unmistakable sound of metal snapping heading down into the corner, so maybe a pretty big curb back from Jeff Jacobson, maybe damaging a little bit of that race car, but nevertheless, going through the classes as it stands currently and looking at the battling involving Jörg Mani, who is a leader still in the Masters category. He's behind this man, Trent Kramer, the number 20 car, who finds himself battling hard with Jason Green. Those two battling for the final spot on the overall podium and the Spec 1 podium in the process. Jörg Mani, though, going to get involved in that fight as well. He has a significant cushion as it stands currently in the Masters class, as he has to go back to Brad Cathcart in the 905 car to find the next Masters competitor, the one driver who certainly does not have the benefit of a big classic gap is not only Joachim Mosbeck in Spec 2, who's leading and running in 6th at the moment, but Felix Samoas, who is not shaking off the challenge from Solal Shuckley in the 132 car. Great with numbers.
Yeah, it's not an easy one there. It's, the last name and the numbers and everything there. You're doing a great job, Ron. It's a lot of stuff out there today and a ton going on track at the moment. It's really hard to keep up with as a producer here as well. So we're kind of going as quick as we can here in a really exciting race so far. But yeah, it looks like Felix just can't really seem to get legged away from him here. And, it's really hard to do that in the SRFs, if I'm honest. Even if you're a little bit, deficit in some of the corners, once you hit these straightaways like this one right here, you can kind of just make that time up pretty easily and get right back on the back. So I would imagine that's kind of what's happening here. If they're smart about it, they're going to be trying to kind of pull away from the Jason Greens and the Trenton Kramers and the Jörg Manis, because if they catch up to them, it'll be a 4, 5, 6 car fight here before they know it.
I have a feeling that this race still has a pretty big curveball that's going to be thrown our way, and I'm not just talking about the pit stops. I have a feeling that something's gonna break here. Whether it's my graphics card, whether it's Josh's graphics card, certainly, hopefully not Josh's sake, considering he's producing this broadcast here today. Maybe the traction under Trent Kramer's race car as he's mega sideways coming out of turn 7, gonna lose out on that spot to Jörg Mani. That's gonna break up that battle a little bit. However, these three racers, I think they need to take it easy, because if they start to battle hard, they bring Joachim Mosbeck into that fight. He's only about 1.2 seconds back at Trent Kramer, and then you don't have to go too far back from Joachim Mosbeck in the 210 to find Flavio Andallo just barely in the back of shot there in the 145 car. We could see that 3-car battle turn into a 4, turn into a 5, and then just snowball from there. We've seen it in the past in Spec Racer Ford races. We saw it 1 week ago at Spa, and I certainly wouldn't rule it out here at Zolder. Belgium's a very small country, but you go to 2 very different racetracks, but there must be something in that Belgian air that's causing these drivers to just fight for all-out glory.
Yeah, absolutely, Ron. There's definitely a lot of attrition going on out there today, and a lot of battles being fought at the moment. It's kind of hard to know where to look as we see them trying to go too wide. That's never going to work through that corner, and I'm a little bit surprised to see it, honestly. If you look at the driver here of Antonio Reese, kind of getting up the inside and sort of wedging the inside of the driver in front of him into T1, all that's ever going to do is slow both of you down for the rest of the drivers. You want to try to kind of stay behind each other, at least until the straightaway, and then make that move happen. If you keep trying to take bites up the inside, all you're doing is slowing yourself down. And sometimes maybe that's okay if you're okay with the position that you're in, or you're just like, I'm not going to move forward much more and I just want this driver. But if you're trying to get forward, that's not how you do it.
Yeah, that is not a smart strategy at all. But again, these drivers lock steady in that battle, and the Red Mist can occasionally overtake some of these drivers. So who knows? Let's see. I know if I was one of these drivers out there on the racetrack, the only comment that could be described in terms of the racing that I would be doing is that there is not calling me a smart fella, but rather calling me a fart smeller. That was a terrible line. I apologize for that. Looking at the fight, that was Phil Berry getting a move put on Antonio Reese. Berry, I believe, is already a couple of laps down, which would explain part of the reason as to why that swap-a-roo that just happened did not result in a change of position. Reese was running good in the early stages of this race. However, he's haven't really gone too well. That minus 13 next to his number on our live timing map is pretty much in stark contrast compared to Tortolo right in front of him, who's up 12 spots from where he started in this race in the 90 car. So some drivers dropping down like an anvil thrown out of a helicopter, others cutting their way through the field like a hot knife through butter.
Yeah, and that's, it's that kind of track really out here today. It's I'd say maybe it is. Maybe it's kind of a specialist track, this one. It's got little elements on it that you sort of really have to nail down, and you kind of have to get all of those elements together to, quite obviously make up a lap. But, there's some tracks where you can kind of get away with maybe a deficit here and there, and maybe I'm not so good at this corner. This one, those chicanes are just so finite, and there's so many of them. You've got to get them right every lap, and it's just not easy to do. Like I was saying before, my last visit here was not easy. I really liked driving around this place because of the challenge, and I just kind of find it a fun track to drive, but not necessarily super good at it. And I had my mistakes out there, and it seems to be kind of what's happening to some of our drivers today. And the ones that can kind of keep it consistent and maybe not even have that overall pace, especially back in some of the farther positions there, that's all you really need is a bunch of consistency, and you probably do okay today.
Yeah, I feel like consistency is such a big deal for these racers. Just whittling the laps away, putting the good lap times on the board, and not getting caught up in the red mist is going to be such a good thing for these racers to try and keep tabs on. However, some racers certainly getting caught up in the red mist, one of them being Trent Kramer, who's dropped down quite significantly as of late. He's now down to sixth. We saw him battling with Jason Green and Jörg Monty not terribly long ago, but he's now dropped down between himself and has dropped down behind the Spec 2 leader of Joachim Osbeck. So things not really going well for him at this stage as we go back and see the battling. Actually, I think I had said not terribly long ago that Phil Berry was getting involved in this battle with himself and Antonio Reese. I just realized that Tortolo also has the Cookie Monster livery on his car.
that just got me too wrong.
Scheme is actually, I think we're both on that same page there,
yeah,
Josh. So
absolutely,
the Cookie Monster becoming a trend.
Yeah, it looks like it. That one got me as well. I'm looking around and I'm like, is my telemetry messed up? Where's Phil? And why is Phil what? Where? Yeah, well, nope, there's two Cookie Monsters out there. That'll do it. One of them's the 888, and the other one is a 90. So there you go. There's two Cookie Monsters. Perhaps we can get some more Sesame Street guys out there for some of the next races. We can have a whole thing. Oscar the Grouch, get them all out there. But I definitely like that livery, actually. It's a pretty good one. And when you're driving out in front of Phil Berry and you see that Cookie Monster coming, it always puts a smile on my face. It's pretty funny stuff.
I think if these drivers play their cards right, they could just have a whole collection of various cartoon characters, movie characters, and otherwise. That would be something that would be definitely a sight to behold. Look at that on Dan Witzak's car, the 413, at mega damage on the front end of that race car. Ooh, that thing looks like a crumbled up chip bag more than anything else. So let's see what happens coming down pit lane. Certainly repairing that damage. Now, it should be known that we are officially in that pit window, as we also see Brad Cathcart and Antonio Reese coming down the pits as well.
Yeah, we're hitting that pit window now. It's, this is actually pretty early. Like, this would probably be just in the pit window around a track like this. And I usually like to try to wait it out a little bit more, but obviously Dan not able to do that with that massive chunk of damage. Probably one of the worst pieces of damage that you can get on these SRF cars is out front like that. It's just a wall, basically, in the air hitting it, and you just can't get forward anymore. It honestly feels like you've lost 5 or 6. It feels like you've lost 30 kilometers an hour, but it's probably in actuality only 3 or 4. But man, oh man, does it ever feel bad when people just start hauling past you because the nose of your car is all rumpled in, and it's never a good feeling here as we see a couple more people coming out and just deciding to blink early here, maybe because there's traffic in front, maybe they have a strategy for later. But yeah, this is about as early as you want to pit in the SRFs run.
Yeah, at this point in time, these drivers coming down pit lane will still have to worry about a little bit of fuel saving come time for the checkered flag. One driver who may not be having to worry about fuel saving, though, is Brad Cathcart, just based off the fact he spent about a minute down pit lane, probably serving a slowdown or some sort of pit violation penalty. But either way, for the comedy sakes, I will say that he is taking in a 55-gallon drum of fuel and trying to jam that into a Spec Racer Ford race car in any way that he possibly can. He's now out and away after spending a minute and 32 down in the pit, so that is a kick in the groin if ever I saw one from Brad Cathcart in the 905. That's going to be a tough call for him. As we see more drivers coming down pit lane, Venture Dantas, Edgar Sentinelli, following Paolo Brema, who we saw battling with Jesus Rodriguez a couple of moments ago. Those two now running in 12th and 13th as this round of pit stops is very much so heating up here, Josh. Usually you see these drivers wait a little bit closer towards that checkered flag to actually come into the pits, but maybe seeing the inverse being true here at Zolder.
I'm a little bit surprised, actually. You know, that could be because of some damage as well that we're not seeing. Some of those curbs, you know, if you hit them hard enough, it will bend the steering in the car. And definitely we have some here on Matt Thompson in the front as we see it get repaired. And Edgar Sancinelli as well, getting the skirt slightly repaired there as well. And you can feel that out there for sure. Hit those curbs too hard, you're going to bend up the front of the car, and it just starts to feel like a bag after that. And I would imagine that's kind of what some of what is happening here, you know, is that... And now, you know, you want to get out. There's quite a bit of race left here now, so you want to get out there and just try to be as nice as you can into those corners and stuff now, into those curbs, because, yeah, even just a hard whack, Ron, can actually bend the suspension in these cars. And I don't think I actually did it during the race when I was here, but I did it in practice a bunch.
Yeah, the curbs are pretty lethal around here, and who knows? We'll maybe see some more aerial acrobatics like we saw earlier on. Oh my good. Okay, I was just going to say that we had the two of them right by each other.
Short-lived.
Tortolo, though, making the smart call to come into the pits. I was just going to say, oh boy. Okay, so we've got, okay, let's break this down here, folks. We've got Tortolo, who are falling right now. He's got the Luigi helmet with the mustache, mind you, and he's also got the Cookie Monster on his race car. What else can we do to kind of like increase the character representation? Have Tolo come into the interview booth here and say, "Oh, Misa Jaja Big Drive Spec Racer Ford." Like, what can we do? Oh boy, to have any more like character representation. Either way, some very odd things going on in this Spec Racer Ford race, and that moment right there is exactly why I could never, in my entire life, regardless of how long I live for, that right there is a reason why I could never get into a career in politics.
Yeah, I think we could probably pass on the Jar Jar Binks. The Jar Jar Binks car out there wasn't really, at least one of my favorite characters out there. Tends to get a little grating after a while, but Cookie Monster, I'm all about Cookie Monster. He's one of my favorite, has been for years, and we just pretty short-lived there. We actually saw them both right beside each other. It would have been great to see a Cookie Monster on Cookie Monster epic battle there till the end, but perhaps maybe they'll catch up to each other and we can see that again, or maybe we'll get some more characters out there for some more shenanigans. But always fun with the liveries there and the googly eyes and stuff. Pretty funny stuff.
After that moment, I'm fully expecting a text message from my father, who's tuning into this broadcast downstairs in the living room, just being, "Why are you like this?" The reason why I'm like this is because I hit my head too much as a kid. Look at this side-by-side racing a little bit farther in the back. This is just barely inside the top 20. And look at Daniel Wood, ever the opportunist, getting a moved on Kremser in the 278 car. Well done from Wood, slipping through. That was incredibly well executed, picking his way through the smoke and the dust and getting some moves done in the process. Well done to Wood.
Yeah, absolutely. We missed a little couple sequence of events there. See if we can't go back and catch it, but it looks like once again those chicanes rearing their head and kind of shuffled somebody out a little bit, and Daniel Wood was able to monopolize on it. Another driver I have been in close quarters with, racing many times, and super clean driver, always gonna he's gonna use his head. You can always kind of count on Dan to make sure he's not gonna hit you, or if he does, it definitely wouldn't be intentional. And looks like he's just gonna monopolize on this maneuver here. Yeah, as we can see, just kind of splitting the two of them, and he just makes it with the competitor giving him a bit of room there. So yep, pretty good pass, and good one to monopolize on for sure. And that's how you're gonna get places, especially at a track like this. Lots of mistakes to be made out there.
And I would briefly like to apologize before we get back to the racing action. If anyone just heard a loud thunk a couple of moments ago, I tried moving my keyboard, and in the process, I nearly dropped it off the side of my desk. So, ever the klutz here on slow motion broadcasting. Hopefully I didn't break that keyboard, because that would certainly not be ideal at all. These drivers, though, hoping to break the draft of their competitors and pull away, which none of these racers really have been able to do. We got battles all up and down this grid. Even the battle up towards the front involving Joahuah, who's now leading it over Felix Samoas. That is not cooled off at all. Those two racers covered by about 0.8 of a second, dealing with some traffic still. And over the halfway mark as well, Josh, we're going to have to start to talk about when these drivers will come down pit lane. It is a win, but look at that Samoas!
Oh, let's get back to live there.
With the rally line. Holy cow!
Holy cow. I was just about to switch to a replay there of how we got that pass done, and holy cow, we saw Felix Samoas. I'm not exactly sure how he held on to that one. His feet were definitely out of the stirrups. He almost lost it, but let's see if we can't go back and have a quick look here and see how that happened. And I'm going to imagine it's just on entry into the curb here. You hit this guy a little too hard. Holy cow, yep, all four, and was able to hold on to it. Let's go on board with him for that one, because, man, oh man, that one definitely going to hurt the back a little bit, I think, Ron.
Yeah, let's take a look at this in the 31 car, heading his way down to turn number 5. Hit that first curve, then hits a second one, and you can tell that was terrifying based off the fact that as I commentated that, the holy cow, the voice crack that I had during that, I sounded like a preteen girl when I was saying that. Holy cow is only the best way I could describe that, because that was absolute insanity. Jason Green now coming into the pits, breaking away from that pure unbridled madness, being joined down pit lane by our Masters leader of Uruguay and Trent Kramer. Joachim Osbach also coming into the pits. However, Osbach has actually lost out on the Spec 2 lead to Ben Rycroft. I'm going to check to make sure there's no chicanery afoot here, but I don't believe I've seen Rycroft get a move done on Joachim Osbach, so I think that may just be down into the pits as the reason why Rycroft has taken the lead in Spec 2. But nevertheless, some more drivers coming down pit lane, but these being the ones that are rather more important than some of the others we saw a little bit farther in the back, because it may sway the leaders into making that call to come into the pits.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of how it plays out, isn't it, Ron? Where you're going to see, especially for me, myself, like, I'm kind of just a dumb driver, and I just go out there and I just put my foot to the ground. And, I don't really think about my fuel much. It's not something I think about too often, but there's people out there who think about it a lot. And usually what I'll do is I kind of just go until my pit guy says, hey, you're about to run out of fuel. And then I go in the next lap unless something drastic happens in front of me. But you're going to find people out there that have much, much better mind for stuff like that than me. And, we're seeing probably a little bit of that now. Sometimes, you can see your competitor go in, and you're like, all right, I'll go in too. You just want to stay with them. Stay with your draft partner is very, very important in these cars. And, you can definitely lose a race or lose positions just by kind of taking that pit, at the wrong time and ending up all by yourself out there. And if you're, the guy you were trying to pass as a draft buddy, they're just going to be faster than you.
Oh, as we see Al-Shutwi and Samoas both coming down pit lane, this is going to give the lead of the race to Flavio Andallo. Ben Rycroft coming in from the lead in the Spec 2 category, but this is the money stop for these drivers. Let's see. They've been close all throughout this race, but that may be good news for Felix Samoas as Sol Al-Shutwi overshoots his marks just a teeny tiny bit, having to reverse a matter of inches, but that small little mistake may be disastrous for the driver of the 132 car. Let's see. Samoa's out and away. He's going to retake the lead from Al-Shutwi. Thankfully for Al-Shutwi, Samoa's did have that rally moment heading through the turn 5 chicane not terribly long before that run into the pits. So it's going to be just about how they were going through probably about 15-ish minutes ago in this race. So they've still assumed P1 and P2 overall, so you have to go back to green to find the next closest competitor. Phil Berry coming into the pits along with Andrew Love. Lots of these racers making that call to come into the pits. Salmon, who won in the Spec 2 category last week at Spa, coming in the 659 car. But that was, I gotta say, kind of expected in terms of that swap-a-roo between Samoas and Al-Shutwi. Let's see how Al-Shutwi is going to manage the end of this race running behind Samoas.
Yeah, I think, like you were saying, I don't think too much has really changed there. I mean, other than obviously there's a bit of a lead change, but the But I don't think it's going to really matter too much at this stage. He's still very much in draft range there, and they're going to be able to try to figure that out before the end of the race or get some passes done. So don't think that's going to change things too much at the moment, but we'll just have to see. And it looks like, again, pit stops really making the difference here for some drivers.
And looking through at all the drivers that we have in this field, here's Flavio Andallo, who was leading it very, very briefly. That's a driver taking tires a little bit farther in the back of the shot. That is not the recommended strategy at all, unless they completely flat spot their tires and were driving around the racetrack as if they were running on rectangles. Flavio Andallo, though, not going to come in for tires, just coming in for a splash and dash. There's Nelson, who we saw in the back of shot in the Masters Racing Team 959 car. He's now out and away, currently running at 37th. I gotta imagine with the lengthy time that he spent down pit lane to take those tires, it had to have been a necessity, as we see Jesus Rodriguez come into the pits and Solal Shutwi and Felix Samoas begin to battle for the lead of the race. They're side by side. Coming out of turn number 3, let's see these two go and fight. Samoas now holding the inside line through 4. Let's see if El Shutwi can hold it off on the outside line, going into the dirt, having to use all of the real estate that he has and a little bit more. El Shutwi holding on as best as he can to try and grab the lead. Samoas, though, he's a very talented racer of his own. These two fast. They've grabbed some checkered flags, but was that a moment for El Shutwi? Yes, it was, heading through turn number 5. My camera's not doing it justice at all, as El Shutwi has a moment through 5.
Yeah, that was a big one again. So it looks like, he kind of went up the inside there, Felix, and sort of just pushed El Shutwi maybe a little bit too much speed into that one, and he caught that second chicane and just flew up in the air. So again, looking like he got away with it, though. I'm not seeing any rumpled panels or anything. So, I noticed even, when I was racing here before, just to bring it back again, I just racked the rear end of the car off that a few times, and it seemed to be able to handle it. It's, if you can get the rear end off it, it seems okay, but if you smack that curb with the front end, it's usually not going to be a good day for you. But it looks like he survived that one. See if he can't bring it back up to Felix here, and maybe we can get another battle going.
Survives to fight another day. Still about a second between these two racers, which is not an insurmountable gap at all. I'm looking through to see that moment from Solal Shutwi. Not the biggest hop that we've seen. It's a bunny hop more than anything else. Reminds me of my F1 2014 days driving around Montreal on that game all the way back on my Xbox 360. But these drivers hoping not to have the same handling properties of that ferry boat. Yeah, you can see in the back of shot. There we go. Is that a storage boat, or I'm trying to figure out what in the world is there? Is that a train or something? I don't even know. You can tell I'm great with anything outside of a race car. But nevertheless, these drivers hoping that their race cars don't handle like that come time for the final 11 minutes of this race. But one driver kicking up some smoke into the air is Jörg Mani, who we just saw kick some more dirt onto the track coming out of turn 4.
Yeah, absolutely. I was expecting to see a little bit more gravel, rearing its head here during this race, but looks like they've kind of managed it. It's like I was saying last week, you sort of just have to put it out of your mind, at least partially. There is definitely some feeling underneath it. There was a few corners at Spa last weekend that I was four-wheel power sliding through on the gas that I had never lost grip in before, and it genuinely feels like the track is dusty. They've done a good job of, it actually does feel dusty, like there's just a little bit less grip. It's not like water, it's not like, like a slippery surface. It genuinely feels like it's a little bit dusty, and I think once they can kind of nail that down with this system, it's actually going to be pretty cool. But at the time being, it's a little bit overdone, and there's especially just sort of the visuals of the particle flying off the rear wheel. Sometimes you will see the car in front there just hucking stuff off the back of it for a good 30 seconds after it goes through the dirt, and that can be a little bit off-putting, to be honest, at first. Something you kind of just have to close out of your mind as a driver and just kind of look forward and keep going.
I like the phrase that you used there a couple of moments ago, Josh, hucking stuff onto the racetrack. I would start using that myself. However, I feel like my dyslexia will come back to bite me at the worst possible time. So I will leave it on that. Looking at the fight continuing on still between Jörg Mani and Trenton Kramer. Kramer, it's a rather up and down race thus far. Never mind that, some side-by-side racing involving Daniel Salmon and Jim Brewster heading off into turn number 8 right now. Side-by-side through the chicane. And who's going to win out in all of this? You've got the 666 of Alan right behind. A very nice looking race car, if I do say so myself. Not going to see some side-by-side fighting, though, through the turn number 10, Jackie Ick's turn. The chicane to bring this lap to a close. Not going to see some side-by-side racing between these two. However, the corners before certainly did. Look at that, the Welsh car of Allen. That is a rather cool-looking paint scheme. Gotta say, the Welsh flag, one of my favorites in the world, for the simple sake that I think it is the only flag in the entirety of the globe that has a dragon on it.
Yeah, pretty cool stuff there on the liveries, and that's something I love about this series as well, as some of the liveries out there. I would like to actually put it out there to the drivers. By all means, get some liveries in here, guys. As many as you can get done. If you have sort of a flat livery on your car, we would love it if you went and got a custom livery done up, or even just take a whack at it yourself. It doesn't have to be amazing or anything, but man, does it ever help us in the booth to recognize who the driver is, just by sight, but it also looks really cool, and it's a sort of a place where you can kind of express yourself on your car as well. This giant canvas being the SRF's basically like a big canvas. Oh, as we see Daniel Salmon trying up the inside of Jim Brewster, and that one is just not going to work out. Unfortunately, you would have needed Jim Brewster to kind of play ball with him there, and that just didn't happen, unfortunately. So we'll have to go back and take a little peek at that one, but that looks like maybe a bit of an ill-advised move there from Daniel.
Yeah, that move was a little bit fishy heading down into turn number 7. Let's take a look at it. You can see him taking a lot of liberties through turn number 5 with that chicane, and let's see him going for the move. It's a good overtaking opportunity, but you need to get it done with authority. That's really tough. Look at Brewster taking that defensive line, and a little bit of a lock up there from Salmon, and just augers straight to the side of Brewster. Tough. It's a racing deal, but still gonna hurt either way. One driver who just made a mistake that may hurt him is Jörg Monty. He was running in 3rd. He's now down into 5th. Trent Kramer and Jason Green both getting moves put on the Swiss driver. So that's gonna be a tough moment from Monty. Gonna have to load up a replay to see what happened to Jörg, heading down into that same moment we saw Salmon have that off-track encounter, and another lockup. This time he's gonna get hit with a slowdown penalty, and also dealing with the gravel. Look at the tires there on the back of Monty's race car. Holy cow.
Yeah, that's yeah. So pretty simple. We talked about it on the run up there. That's a hard chicane, and if you miss it, you get a massive slowdown. And then on top of that, if you run through what looked to me like a bunch of paper mache on his tires, or ticker tape or something like that on the ground, it picked up so unbelievably well off the ground there. You saw him just understeer really, really badly as soon as he got out into there as well. And unfortunately, that move just before that into Brewster with Daniel Salmon, it looks honestly like sort of committed to it and then backed out of it, and then it was too late, kind of thing. So it looked like kind of that move was on, like you were saying, and then it kind of wasn't, and then it just kind of got awkward. So unfortunately, that spun them both, but doesn't look like they got too much damage to be able to move on.
Yeah, it was a little bit of harm and a little bit of a foul, but still, they're still in the race as it stands currently, as Monty having a big sideways snap coming out of turn number 5. That's going to drop him back at that fight even more, thankfully, for Monty. You have to go back about 25 seconds to find Antonio Reese in 12th. So not going to be feeling the burn in terms of Masters, but after that lockup, and also the lockup heading down into turn number 6. If we rode on board with Jörg Monty and had a chat with him, he'd be sounding like this come time for the end of this race, because those tires are so flat spotted. But Monty running in the 5th spot as it stands currently, now feeling the burn from Andallo behind.
Yeah, I think you kind of nailed it on the head there too, Ron. You lock them up once or twice, you get into the gravel, and it's sort of like biting your cheek. You bite your cheek and it swells, and you bite it again and bite it again and bite it again. It just gets worse and worse and worse, and that's kind of the analogy for the tires here. You get a little bit of dirt on them, you lock them up, they start to get hot, you lock up again because they're hot, you just keep locking up, and really what it takes is just some patience and to kind of slow everything down. Maybe you lose a position or two and you can get them back, but I think this new tire model on the SRFs this season is a little bit better at that, and if anybody's going to recover a tire and drive smoothly, it's Jörg Monty here. So he should be able to put it back together, but it looks like Andallo is going to be hounding him now. He sees some blood in the water, and he's going for it.
Yeah, let's see if Andallo is going to risk it for the biscuit to make it an all-spec 1 top 5. If anyone's going to do it, it's going to be Andallo. He's put together a really good drive in the 145 car. Monty kicking up some more dirt coming out of turn number 4. And here we go, side-by-side racing off into the corner. This can usually end in tears. One of these drivers is going to have to back out of it, and it's going to be Andalo. But Monty's still allowing some room coming out of the corner. They're side by side going up the hill through turn number 6. So close to making contact, very close to making contact. That was a matter of inches between those two race cars. Bad last late breakers into the turn 7 chicane. Monty maybe picking up a slowdown potentially, and Dallo still wheeling it on the inside line, heading through the double right-hander that we're going through right now. And Dallo, though, credit where credit's due, gave it the old college try. He's put together a really solid drive in the 145 car, finds himself up 5 spots from where he started in this race. It is a good fight to keep our eyes on because these two battling for points. A reminder, folks, anyone who hasn't tuned into one of these Weekend Warriors broadcasts ever, a friendly reminder that they are not judged by class in terms of the points that are awarded. The points are rewarded overall, so if you're a Masters driver, even if you win in the Masters category, you're still going to get P5 points for finishing P5 overall. So despite the fact these two find themselves in complete different classes, still going to matter at the end of the season as Andalo trying to wheel it down the inside into turn number 1, side by side with himself and Monty. Monty going to inherit that inside line off into turn number 2. Let's see which one of these drivers is going to give up the fight, give up the gusto. Looks like it's going to be Andalo for it now. I say that, though, he's still side by side. Wheeled it on the inside. I thought he got shoved out to dry on the outside line coming out of turn number 2. But here we go through 4 side by side still. And Andalo, well done to the driver of the 145 car to get that move done. It's still not over yet, though, as Monty within striking distance, trying to go for it around the outside into turn number 5. That's an ill-advised move. It's ended poorly in the pass, and Monty's had an off-track excursion there already, so he's going to back out of it.
Wow, some pretty good fighting here between Andalo and Monty. That was a pretty good battle, and that new camera angle I worked on there really paying off to show the side of the car and just how close they were getting together. I can tell you one thing with these SRFs is that if you're on the inside and you happen to be trying to pass someone and you're on the inside of that corner, the smallest, tiniest little tap to the panel of the inside panel or the outside panel of the inside car will send you spinning like a leaf. Not exactly sure why that is. I would really, really hope that in the near future and the coming seasons here that iRacing is able to fix that. It always just seems to be the car on the inside loses out, but we saw 2 drivers there just doing a spectacular job of keeping off of each other and not having something like that happen. So some great action there between these two competitors.
Yeah, some great action going on for the battle between those two in 5th and 6th, but my eye is on the battle between P1 and P2. Samoas and Al-Shadwi still covered by practically nothing, considering we have 38 coming up to 39 minutes on the board of this race thus far. The fact these two are covered by about 6 tenths of a second really speaks volumes about how talented both of them are behind the wheel of a Spec Racer Ford, but nevertheless, this is going to be intense. Coming to the checkered flag. They're not coming to the checkered flag this time by, I believe, about a minute left on the clock. They're heading their way through turn 7 on the top end of the circuit now. So don't believe they're taking the checkered this time by, but if they are taking it, it would go the way of Felix Samoas. But nevertheless, this is going to be a really good fight to keep our eyes on. And some traffic involved in this battle as well, riding on board with Brad Cathcart in the 905 car. And if you're Cathcart, that's a terrifying view to have, looking in your rearview mirror and finding Samoas, who already has a victory thus far this season, really should have grabbed another one at Spa 1 week ago, but trying to grab his second and full commitment through the chicane, but can get held up. Cathcart and Samoa is coming to blows, coming to the white flag. One more lap of racing action here from the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors, and that gap that Samoa has had has just about diminished. Doubly so considering Al-Shadwi just set the fifth lap of the race, and here he comes. Al-Shadwi trying to take advantage of a frazzled Samoas who came to blows with Cathcart and just ran wide coming out of turn number 1. This is going to be a dogfight between these two coming to the checkered flag, but Al-Shadwi doesn't have a whole lot of time left to go. They're heading their way through turn number 4 for the last time in this race. Samoa is running wide, kicking more dirt into the air. This is going to be really, really intense between these two drivers. Al-Shadwi running in second. Samoa's still in the lead for now. However, with mistakes like that, you don't want to have those happen too much. You can see a car going off the track right in front of those two racers, but this is going to be an interesting fight coming to the checkered flag. I'm not sure if Al-Shadwi has any more opportunities though, Josh. I think turn number 8 for the final time may be the final time that we can think about going for a move, because after that, you're pretty much flat out all the way to the checkered flag. But Al-Shutwi has put on a really good drive. Samoa's has as well. Both these two racers looking to grab their second checkered flag of this season. And who's going to be the one victorious? More lap traffic to contend with, but not going to affect it too much. However, Al-Shutwi has a fantastic run coming out of turn number 8 for the last time. About to head their way into the final chicane. Al-Shutwi in that 132 car tried to go for it around the outside, but in the end, it's not going to be enough. But Samoa's, he gets a slowdown, and it's going to be Al-Shutwi taking the win in a dramatic turn of events coming to the checkered flag. Samoa's a heartbreaking conclusion to this race. What in the world? Where did he pick up that slowdown? It had to have been through the final chicane of Photo Fish with Trent Kramer and Jason Green.
So close.
And Kramer going to get third at the line. That was 0.02 of a second between those two. Holy crap.
Yeah, holy cow, we kind of missed the last little bit there. It's unfortunate on the last lap that we got a little bit of lap traffic getting in the way and stuff there, but it ended up being a pretty good finish anyway, and it looks like, yeah, Ron, you're right. It looks like perhaps Samoa's there got a slowdown on the last lap and just had to pull over to the side and let him by. I'm not exactly sure why he would before the line, though. I'm not sure that extrapolates over till the end. I could be wrong. Maybe you get a big penalty and that's why he did it, or perhaps he was just giving it the position up. A little bit confused.
Honestly, though, I think Samoa's, in terms of serving that slowdown penalty, that was a necessity, because we've seen in the past in the Weekend Warriors world, Josh, a driver not serve the slowdown in time, and then they get dropped down by about 40 seconds, because that's usually the penalty that iRacing likes to apply. And if he lost out 40 seconds, he would have dropped all the way down to about Antonio Reese, outside the top 10 for sure. So that would have been a heartbreaker at the end of this race. But we're going to take a look at a replay to see all that drama going on with Samoa's. You can see him just hit the brakes. That had to have been a slowdown. There's nothing else that could have been in my mind. But
I think you're right.
Lord, I couldn't even register what I was seeing there.
Yeah, I totally kind of just, and I actually missed a couple people coming across the line there because I kind of couldn't figure out what exactly had just happened in front of me there. But, after putting up such a good defense that entire race and then unfortunately just having to let go because of that slowdown at the end, really unfortunate there for Samoa's. But nonetheless, a bit of a frenetic race today. Lots of attrition out there as we see some drivers burning it down on the straightaway. There must not be a jump today. So holy crap, I think that was... Who was that there? Viglini getting hopped up in the air like a tiddlywink there. Oh, we got a runaway driver. Things are looking bad. There we go. Jason Perry looking like Algushwari there years ago at, I believe, I forget what round that was, when his tires blew off on him.
That was actually Boemi at China.
Oh, Boemi, that's right. Yes, that's right.
Boy. I don't know what to say. Oh, there's Red Cathcart upside down. And another driver coming in. That's Jeff Jacobson upside down. Oh, boy, the game of chicken going on here at the end of this race. The amount of smoke and gravel and stuff got kicked up into the air, and someone just came in for the kill on Trent Kramer.
Yeah, we're looking like some pretty racked up race cars here in our usual tradition of burning them down at the end. Must not be a jump on this course because we're just smashing into each other in an open field, and that's kind of what we like to do at the end of these races, Ron, is just burn the cars down, because why not?
I mean, hey, you may as well. And oh, that's another driver coming in. Who's that? That's Bradshaw coming in for the kill on Jeff Jacobson. Oh, and that's someone tumbling over. That's Brad Cathcart, who I think may be upside down. I'm looking through. I think you can just barely. It's like a Nat Geo documentary picking the cars out through the trees. Okay, so Cathcart has now Austin Powers himself in the space between the bear. Oh my God, Stephen Mitchell! What in the world has happened to the driver of the 917 car, cartwheeling his way through the gravel trap?
That was impressive. That was an impressive one there for sure. You don't generally see them cartwheeling quite like that, but it looks like we've got some pretty burned out race cars here, Ron. We should probably check on the results from this race. What do you say?
Yeah, I think we'll check out on the results before any more
chaos.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. You can tell my confusion based off the fact I sound like a deer a couple of moments ago. Oh boy. Solo Shutwe, though, takes the checkered flag when everything is said and done in a dramatic series of events as Swaparoo in position, coming to take the checkered flag. Felix Samoas getting a slowdown at the worst possible time, ends up in P2, so he did serve that slowdown in time. He's not being classed all the way down in about 12. Instead, he's in a heartbreaking second. That all-elusive second win for the second week in a row, going to evade Felix Samoa. Trent Kramer and a squeaker between himself and Jason Green, going to finish in P3. Jason Green finishes a matter of inches behind in fourth. York Monty wins it in the Masters category. Flavio Andallo ends up taking the checkered flag in sixth. In the Spec 2 category, didn't really mention it at all. Ben Rycroft took the checkered flag in seventh of this race, and he did come down pit lane, so he was eventually able to jump in front of Joachim Ozbeck. Should be known that Ozbeck, looking through, spent a significant amount of time down pit lane, 19-second stop compared to his competitors spending about 13, 14, and 15. So that's part of the reason why Ben Rycroft in the 735 car wins it in the Spec 2 category, finishing this race in 7th overall. Finishing this race in 8th overall, it's going to be Daniel Wood, Avenger Dantes, who led for a very brief period of time, ends up in 9th. Dan Witzak in 10th. Joachim Ozbeck going to finish at 11th. Antonio Reese in P12. Andre Favini in 13th. Phil Berry in 14th. Tortolo ends up in 15th. I want to apologize for a couple of moments because I was very close to the microphone indeed. Edgar Santinelli ends up in 16th. Paolo Brema in 17th. Matt Thompson ends up in P18. And rounding out, we'll do even splitsies here, Josh, because I felt kind of bad earlier on. Rounding out your top 22 is going to be Adam Bradshaw, Andrew Love, Aid Allen, and Jason Perry.
Excellent. Yeah, I could definitely use a little bit of practice on these as I kind of hacked the intro there a little bit. So we'll see if we can't get this one a little bit better. But we got Daniel Salmon in 23rd, Jeff Jacobson in 24th, Marcus Burkett in 25th, Brad Cathcart kind of getting in the way of a finish there at the end. I'm going to have to go back and have a look at that because I was actually kind of just a little bit distracted at the moment there. But it sounds like maybe he kind of affected the end of that race a little bit. Jesus Rodriguez in 27th, Paul Jackson in 28th, Scott Russell in 29th, Mario Cressmer in 30th, Alan McCain in 31st, Jim Brewster in 32nd, Michael Nelson in 33rd place. Took some tires during that race, which was a little bit of an odd move, definitely setting him back. Tom Gradwell in 34th, Stephen Mitchell in 35th, Michelle Vaglini, or is that Michael Vaglini in 36th, Soren Garrett's in 37th, Joshua Justice in 38th, 39th is Charles Vaccaro, Russell Telker in 40th, Joshua Soto not taking the start in 42nd, and I believe the last two guys here as well not taking the start today in Daniel Case and Jason Grider.
So those are your results from a rather exciting day of Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors action, from the shenanigans after the checkered flag to the brilliant racing from start to finish. We had it all in this race. Got some drivers waiting in the interview waiting area, and I think the first driver that I'm going to bring in is going to be Trent Kramer because I have some business to take care of after the Formula Ford race earlier on today. Trent Kramer now joining us in the commentary booth. And now, Trenton, before this goes... before we really get the interview up and rolling here, I want to apologize for pulling off a very bad commentator jinx against you in the Formula Ford race earlier on today. So I want to get that apology noted and out of the way before I ask you about this Spec Racer Ford race, which was absolutely action-packed, and that finish with yourself and Jason Green certainly proved it.
Yeah, I'll send you my PayPal information over for the Formula Ford race. That was very unfortunate. Had a rough day with that car, but yeah, it was a crazy race. I bought the track for Faux Speed and haven't ran it since, so I've only ever done one other session in this, and it's a track that really clicks with me. I was glad to be able to run with Jason. I wish we could have caught up to Felix and Sol, but we have not been abducted as well as they have, at least. So hope to get up to their pace one day. But it was crazy between Jurg, myself, Joaquin was battling with me for a little bit there as well, and then that finish with Jason when he sputtered coming out of the chicane. That was terrifying, to say the least.
And we're actually taking a look at that replay of that very close call between you two. Oh boy, yeah, that's my live reaction seeing that for the first time myself. I wanted to ask you though, in terms of that battle, because you mentioned how it wasn't just yourself and Jason battling. We saw Jorgamani involved in that fight, and we also see Joachim Ozbeck getting involved in that. So 2 Spec 1 racers, a Masters driver, and a Spec 2 driver. So I think you can kind of answer this question rather well about the interclass dynamic when it comes to battling in a Weekend Warriors race.
I very much dislike the way that the point system is set up, where basing on where you finish, even if you're in a different class, like gets you more or less points. I think that it should be kind of separated between the drivers themselves in their respective class, but I have no problem battling with anybody in this group. Everybody here is really respectful, especially when you get further towards the front. It's amazing how much closer you can fight with people, and everybody is just super well aware of everything going on. But yeah, Joachim seems like I think he's a pretty new guy to the league. I think he's going to be a really good contender with a little bit more practice. And obviously Jörg is always up there playing in the front with Jason for a little bit. So I'm just glad to be up here and be a part of this little pack that we got running around.
It was a pretty exciting pack to follow all throughout this race as well. Fingers crossed that we're going to see the same amount of action come time for the next race here of the Spec Racer Ford season. Just 1 week's time, the series is going to be rocking up to an old school American favorite, Summit Point. So what are your thoughts heading into that race in 1 week's time?
It's Summit. I hope the gravel isn't as immense as it used to be. Obviously today there was a little bit of gravel stuff going around, but it wasn't nearly as bad as pre-update. So I think that turn 4, something like that. That's going to be rather spicy, especially going through the S's where there's really only one lane to go through there fast, with people dropping tires and stuff. It's going to be a little messy. And the exit of the final corner is going to be chaotic, as it always is, even without the gravel. But it'll be fun. I'm not really looking forward to it because I'm not a huge fan of the track, but it'll be fun.
Yeah, fingers crossed it's going to be exciting, and fingers crossed that you give us another fantastic finish at the end of that Summit Point race, because that, I think, may be the closest finish we've had all throughout this season. Already 4 races on the board. But Trent Kramer, thank you very much for joining us here in the commentary booth. And before we let you go and celebrate this podium result here today, is there anyone you want to give a thanks to or shout out?
Huge thanks to Jason. He kind of put me on an even playing field when I first got the track here. He tossed me his setup as he typically does, and didn't really want to bite the hand that fed me, so I'm glad we were able to navigate the sputtering at the end of the race without having a 4X or taking him out. And huge thanks to you guys for putting on a huge show. Our whole fan base of like 20 people plus the drivers that show up every week is always great to shout out to the fans, and then Grass Paddock Motorsports, if you guys are interested in getting into actual racing here in North America, we've actually got 2 cars going out to California to be rented. So race car rentals for Grass Paddock Motorsports.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining us here in the commentary booth, Trent. Thank you very much for the kind words, and excited to see you back out on the racetrack for the rest of the season, man. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
And that right there was Trent Kramer. I'll have to get that whole payment deal sorted at the end of this broadcast. But Josh, we've got some more drivers waiting in the interview waiting area. Who would you like to have a chat with?
Yeah, let's take our winner in here, Ron. I'm not sure we've had a chance to speak to him yet, but yeah, let's have a chat with the winner today. Great win out there today. It looks like you and Felix Samoas were kind of back and forth pretty much the entire race there, kind of just biding your time, and then at the very end it looks like I'm not sure if that was a slowdown or what happened there, but you were able to take out the win today. Do you have any can you kind of fill us in maybe on what happened to Felix there?
Yeah, he got slowed down, so to be honest, I had no chance to overtake him there, so if he didn't get slowed down, so yeah, I got the win.
That is what it looked like. It looked like you were playing very nice and clean driving out there with Samoas there today, and I was actually thinking the same thing as like, oh, it doesn't look like he's going to get it, and he's kind of playing fair about it here. He's not going to push him out of the way, and then sure enough, he hit the brakes and you got right by and ended up taking the win today. So definitely showed a bunch of pace out there. Was that because of a bunch of practice you've done around here, or is that, or is this just a track that kind of jives with you?
Yeah, the track is it's really good actually. It only like had one chicane you're gonna fly. I did fly actually.
You did, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did happen to catch that actually. I believe it was from Samoa's point of view there, and I think even back and forth we had quite a few drivers swacking that curb pretty hard and getting up in the air. But I believe where are we headed again next week there, Ron? Seems to have
next
slipped my
race is
mind.
going to be Summit Point.
Summit Point is our next race in these SRFs. Are you going to be joining us for that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, is that one of your good tracks too, or are you going to be doing a bunch of practice this week for that one?
Yeah, actually I never ran that track, so yeah, I'm gonna practice.
Never run there before. Okay, well I can
Yeah.
tell you it's a tight, really fast, kind of old school sports car track. Really fun. Definitely one you're going to want to get some practice in on for sure.
Yeah, thank you guys for the broadcast. Actually, it was fun. It was a good race. Props to Felix. It was really clean driving from him. I had no chance catching him, so yeah, it was a mistake from his side. So yeah, thank you.
Excellent. Yes, thank you for the kind words there as well. We love putting the broadcasts on, and great win today. So we'll see you again next weekend.
Yeah, see ya.
Have a good one.
And that right there was Sol Al-Shutwi, your winner in a squeaker at the end of this race. And we got another driver waiting in the interview waiting area, that being Jorg Mani, who is now joining us. And Jorg, it's another Masters win from this season, but that race looked like a rather up and down one, and we're not just talking about the aerial acrobatics over some of the curves.
What kind of note did I get for the acrobatic stuff? 9? 9.5?
That's a very good question. I'm gonna
Right
have to
around
go through
there.
my notes here real quick. Yeah, it was around about that. We saw some rather
There was some
interesting
pretty good ones
stuff
today,
going
yeah.
on.
You have to do something interesting on such a track. Because on Thursday I was so horrible. I was really ashamed how I drove on Thursday. But I made some progress, and that's why I'm happy with P5 already. So I'm happy.
Happy with a P5 and happy with another Masters win to keep the season rolling. It looked like a really hard-fought show from all you drivers up and down the grid here at Zolder. I want to ask you about this racetrack and the differences between the two Belgian racetracks from Spa 1 week ago to a rather more calm day behind the wheel at Zolder.
I think you see that completely wrong, because it's not a calm day in Zolder at all. You have to be aware, especially turn 1 already. If you go wide there, it's not so good. I spun on Thursday in turn 1, did a stupid mistake. Then the chicane, you can learn how to fly. The second chicane on the exit, you're gonna spin with all that gravel. You have to be careful. So it wasn't actually a calm day at all. It was really, really tough, and I'm glad that I just did spun only once, I think, and that was quite good actually for me.
It was a half spin coming out of the chicane, so we'll consider it a 0.5 of a spin, not a full spin for you, but still, it's still full victory from the season, and I'll have to go through. It's one of a couple that you've had thus far this season, so a really good start to procedures here for season 1 of 2024. So, what are your thoughts heading into Summit Point next week, trying to go for 4 straight?
I would say I do like actually Summit Point. And it's going to be interesting to see with all the gravel again, to see if they're going to be cleared out. But on this track it wasn't. So let's see. I actually like Summit. Yeah.
Summit gonna be a really good race to talk about in 1 week's time. It's a classic in terms of SCCA racing, and the Spec Racer Fords, of course, being a classic in the car realm of the SCCA. So fingers crossed the racing is going to be incredible in 1 week's time here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. But Jorg, before we let you go and celebrate your second Masters win of the day, is there anyone you want to give a thanks to or shout out?
Yes, of course, to the ones in the chat. For once, they never get a shout out, I realized, and thanks a lot, guys and girls, that you always come up and watch our races. That's fantastic. Thanks a lot.
We got a whole lot of people out there in the chat. I can see Michelle, Lynn, I can see yourself there as well, Tam, the #1 Weekend Warriors fan, shall we say, and I can also see James Shelley Bob, so I believe is James Sheldon from the Formula V series. A whole lot of people out there in the chat, and you were there as well, managing both being on the track and in the chat, and also being with us in the commentary booth as well. But Jörg, well done on the Masters win, and excited to see you back out on the racetrack for the rest of the season.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ron and Joshua. I'm gonna see you again on the next track, Joshua.
Yep, I should be back behind the wheel at the next one there. I think every third or so week I'm gonna have to miss out, but really looking forward to hitting the wheel again next weekend with you.
Ah, great to hear.
And that right there was Jörg Mani, very much so invested as to whether or not Josh was going to be back out on the racetrack in 1 week's time. And Josh, I know our buddy Adam here at Slow Motion Broadcasting, of course, busy with his obligations, packing C-130s to help out those people affected by the California wildfires. We mentioned this in the Formula Ford broadcast, and we will mention it again. Anyone affected by those California wildfires, our thoughts go out with you, including our Slow Motion Broadcasting colleague, Mr. Mike Braun, who I subbed in for on the SRG broadcast this past Wednesday. But still, it's nice to be back on these Weekend Warriors broadcasts with you, Josh. You know, we do the Formula V's week in and week out on Saturdays, but the last time we did a Formula Ford broadcast together, it's been many a season. I think it was all the way back in June of last year, the last time we were on one of those Formula Ford broadcasts together. But what are your thoughts on the day behind the microphone instead of behind the wheel?
Yeah, well, you know, like I said before in the other race there, if you know, this is probably the best seat in the house, honestly, to watch the race other than actually being in it. So if I can't be in the race, this is definitely the second best place to be for sure. And super enjoyed actually calling it from this side of things here today. It's been a while since I've been able to produce one of these, and I've never had a chance to commentate on it. And it's kind of cool to try to bring a little bit of insight there to the SRFs, and you know, hopefully I'll have a chance to do it again down the line here. But you know, if I can choose, I would much rather be behind the wheel of these cars. So fun to drive, so much fun, so many good drivers out there as well, and our fans out there watching us every week. We can't thank you enough. Please make sure you do like, subscribe, and share to Slow Motion Broadcasting, and we'll keep bringing you these every week as much as we can, and improving every week there, Ron. So thanks a lot for all the kind words and everything there from everyone, and hopefully I'll be back, doing some commentary again in a few weeks. But until then, I'll be on the track.
Yeah, and excited to see you back out on the racetrack. And whenever you want to be with us here in the commentary booth, you got the keys. I mean, you basically own the company at this point, so it'd be a little bit concerning if you didn't have the keys to get here into the commentary booth. But still, thank you for joining me in the commentary booth all throughout today's broadcast, Josh, and also doing the other rather thankless job at certain points of time, working on the cameras as well, and also all the graphics that we may have a few more coming up between now and the end of this broadcast. Talk about some of the other broadcasts that we have here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. Wildcard Wednesdays with the Ray Esports Club Racing League, with the Formula V's and Spec Racer Fords going to be running this upcoming Wednesday, and also the action from the Sim Racers Group Intermediate F4 Championship. You'll be able to catch Mike Braun hopefully on that broadcast this upcoming Wednesday. Gives you more of a reason to subscribe, just so you don't miss out on the action on the Wednesdays. But you certainly don't want to miss out on the action on the weekends, because Saturdays and Sundays are absolutely packed here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. The Formula V's ran yesterday. That's always some pretty good racing, some draft-heavy matters. It was Okayama playing host of the latest round of that season, and you want to stay tuned for all that on 2 p.m. EST every single Saturday here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. Then time for Super Sunday with the Formula Fords making their appearance earlier on today, and the Spec Racer Fords, of course, which is the broadcast that you all just tuned into. And we got some more action coming up here on Slow Motion Broadcasting in the next few months with all the stuff going on here. It gives you more reason to subscribe, and also hit that notification bell, and also hit the like on this broadcast so you never miss out on any of the racing action. But I think for this Super Sunday, for round number 4, the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors at Zolder, that will just about do it. And so for myself, Ron Maunz, and Joshua Wilkie joining me working the comms and the cams on today's broadcast, I say thank you all so very much for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and we hope to see you all wherever it is in the not too far off future.